Okay, that's good. Oops. That article was just for me. It has nothing to do with anthropology. I just saw it on my feed and was like, that's interesting, what the heck? Okay. I think that's about it. So, let me rename the stream, because it's not... Ooh. No. Can't type. I cannot type. Yeah, okay. Much better. Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, guys. I'm here. Sorry. I try to get streaming as soon as possible, and I am a little off kilter. I was out in the field doing some shovel probes, and I didn't give myself enough time to get here and prepare for the stream, so I was doing that right now, as you saw me, and an empty screen, so that's what I was doing. So you know, I have not read these articles at all as I read them to you. Anyways, yeah, the past couple weeks I've been doing field work, and that's been nice. It's been fun. It's starting to get cold. We've dealt with a little bit of like high winds, which does kind of affect your ability to be able to work if you're having trouble standing up. Yeah, I do sometimes. Yeah. Anyways, let's go ahead and get the stream going. Welcome back from last week. I streamed last week, didn't I? Yeah, I did. Anyways, it's fine. Let me know if the music is too loud. I think I have it down to a good amount, where it's just kind of a nice little sway. And I'm thirsty because I didn't drink enough water in the field. So, hold on. Okay. Yes, you must drink lots of water, even if it's cold out and you don't feel like you need a drink. I had tea and coffee, but no water. So, gotta catch up in the afternoon on that. Okay. So, first article, what do we have? Evidence of prehistoric human activity in Falkland Islands. Since its first recorded sighting by European explorers in the 1600s, scientists and prehistorians have believed that Europeans were the first people to ever set foot on the Falkland Islands. So, like, didn't I do this? I think I did this. A lot of my, like, newsreel for anthropology was repeated stuff I had already done. Let's see. We got the good old British flag. Whew. Nice. It's a nice little island. Oh, okay, yeah. I don't believe I did this one. Okay. I knew it sounded familiar. Couldn't remember where. Yes, geography is not my strong suit. I am not horrible. I think I want to give myself credit that I am better than your average person, but probably not. Probably not. Okay. Findings from a new University of Maine-led study, however, suggest otherwise, that human activity on the islands predates European arrival by centuries. That is a weird sentence. Findings from a new University of Maine-led study, however, suggest otherwise. That human activity on the islands predates European arrival by centuries. I don't know who wrote this, but you broke everything up way too much. That's a horrible sentence. I mean, it's saying what you want it to say, but you didn't need all the commas and semicolons. Kit Hamley, National Science Foundation graduate research fellow from UMaine Climate Change Institute, spearheaded the first ever scientific investigation into prehistoric human presence on the southern Atlantic archipelago. She and her team collected animal bones, charcoal records, and other evidence from across the islands over multiple expeditions and examined them for indications of human activity, using radiocarbon dating and other laboratory techniques. One notable sign of pre-European human activity derived from an 8,000-year-old charcoal record collected from a column of peat on New Island, located in the southwestern edge of the territory. According to researchers, the record showed signs of a marked increase in fire activity in 150 CE, then abrupt and significant spikes in 1410 CE and 1770 CE, the latter of which corresponds with the initial European settlement. Researchers also gathered sea lion and penguin samples on New Island near the site where a landowner discovered a stone projectile point that is consistent with technology indigenous South Americans have used for the past 1,000 years. Okay, I was like, is it just charcoal that we got? Is it just charcoal? I was waiting for something else. Okay, the bones were heaped in discrete piles at one site. Oh, now there's bones? Hamley says the location, volume, and type of bones indicate that the mounds were likely assembled by humans. What bones? You just suddenly threw out bones. I'm sorry, this is actually very poorly written. Most of the evidence Hamley and her colleagues collected indicated that indigenous South... Did I, miss bones somewhere? Oh! I did. I completely skipped over it. I did. Okay. She and her team collected animal bones, charcoal records, and other evidence from across the island. For some reason, only charcoal, stuck in my mind, and I glazed over the fact they had bones. Not a poorly written article. Just a bad reader. Most of the evidence Hamley and her colleagues collected indicated that indigenous South Americans likely traveled to the Falkland Islands between 1275 and 1420 CE, arrival dates prior to 1275. However, cannot be ruled out because some evidence dates back even earlier according to researchers. For example, the team found a tooth from an extinct Falkland Islands fox called the Wara with a radiocarbon date of 3450. The oldest for the species, regardless. All of the team's findings indicate that people landed in the archipelago before British navigator John Strong in 1690, the first European to set foot on the archipelago. Indigenous people likely visited the islands for multiple short-term stays as opposed to long-term occupation, according to UMaine researchers. As a result, they left few cultural materials there, but enough for Hamley and her colleagues to find discernible anthropogenic and paleoecological footprint and conduct their study. I mean, it makes sense that they would have visited this island. It's not too far off of the tip of South America. And, I mean, look at the Polynesians, man. They island hop like madmen. I cannot believe, how well they did. I am baffled by how Polynesians were able to go from island to island, and it wasn't even it's 5 miles off the coast here to the next island. No. I mean, they got to Hawaii. That's out in the middle of nowhere. It's amazing. what they did. Chew explorers. They're like, I don't know what's out there, but we gonna go this way. See if we find something. I wonder how many, like, died out in storms out in sea. And we may never know because it's so freaking deep. Okay. Ooh, speaking of that, if, like, I wonder if any cultural material ever ended up washed up on other continents. Ooh, that'd be interesting. Okay, anyways, I'm so off topic. Other investigators involved in the research included, ooh, that pop felt nice. Dulcinea Groff, a postdoctoral research scientist at the University of Wyoming, and former UMaine PhD student Catherine Kozinski. An assistant professor of anthropology. All these people. Hamley's most recent study builds on her research into the wara, an extinct species of fox. The wara was the only native and terrestrial mammal to reside on the Falkland Islands at the time of European arrival. Subsequent hunting wiped the species out in 1856, making it the first extinct canid in historic record. Oh, that's sad. So, cool. They've proven that South Americans were in the Falkland Islands. Nice, nice, nice. I like it. What big teeth you have? Tooth root surface area can determine primate size. Hold on. Okay. An often overlooked feature could give scientists new insight into the lives of ancient primate species. Researchers from North Carolina State University have developed formulas that can calculate the body size of a primate based on the root size of its teeth. The formulas could allow researchers to make use of partial and incomplete fossils in order to learn how ancient primates, including human ancestors, interacted with their environment. Okay, so tooth size. Is it like length? Is it volume? Is it like depth? What are we talking about here? Ashley Dutch, North Carolina State graduate student and first author of a paper describing the research, wanted to know if it was possible to determine what a primate's diet was without having the actual tooth crown at hand. By looking instead at the roots. Okay, yeah. What we commonly think of when we think of teeth isn't the whole story. The part that does the chewing is merely the crown. The part that keeps the tooth anchored in the jaw is the root. If you didn't know that. The tooth root transmits the force of the jaws into the food, says Adam Hurtstone-Rose, professor of biological sciences at NC State and paper co-author. You can think of the root as the handle of a hammer. Okay. Dush and the research team initially set out to determine whether tooth roots could indicate the shape of the tooth's crown, thus telling them what particular primates preferred to eat. Using computer tomography, Duch analyzed and calculated the tooth root surface area. Okay, surface area. Our area of contact where the root fits into the jaw of 70 primates from 75 species, ranging in size from tiny mouse lemurs to great apes. It was a bit like trying to figure out if you have an axe or a hammer based on the shape of the handle. Ultimately, she found that the tooth roots only related to diet in a few lineages. However, she was able to determine how big the primates were across all lineages. Duch developed a series of formulas based on the relationship between the tooth root surface of a molar or premolar, the teeth located between canines and molars, and primate body mass. The formulas can be used to estimate body mass of primates with more or less specificity, depending upon whether their class is known. The formulas can also explain up to 96% of variation in body mass with the examined primate sample. But perhaps the most useful application of the equation will be with fossils that are currently of little use to anthropologists and paleontologists. As long as the fossil has a bit of root, you can use the formulas even if the tooth crowns are missing. Fossils are often maddeningly incomplete, but now these incomplete pieces can be useful, and they could answer questions about our own lineage, like how big our ancient ancestors were. That's quite nice. Hopes to continue refining the existing equations and expand the work beyond primates to other mammals, including carnivores. That is cool. That is really, really cool, because a lot of times you have partial teeth, and teeth are like the biggest thing that is preserved. You get a lot of teeth, so that'll be really useful and super cool to have done that, and probably she will improve those formulas to get something a little more precise. Alright, red paint on 1,000-year-old gold mask from Peru contains human blood proteins. 30 years ago, archaeologists excavated the tomb of an elite 40 to 50-year-old man from the Sican culture of Peru, a society that predated the Incas. The man's seated upside-down skeleton was painted bright red, as was the gold mask covering his detached skull. Now, researchers reported in ACS Journal of Proteome Research have analyzed the paint, finding that in addition to red pigment, it contains human blood and bird egg proteins. They just kind of mixed a little bit of everything, didn't they? The Sican was a prominent culture that existed from the 9th to 14th centuries along the northern coast of modern Peru. Oh, here, let me do this for you guys, so you know where this is. Maps. I don't know if you guys know where Peru is, but I will show you anyways. I actually got to work there on excavating a ceremonial site. It was pretty cool. So we got it here. This is Peru. Down here, there's the States, Mexico, Brazil. It really shows like things close, doesn't it? I wish I could zoom out more. I'd love to be able to like show everything. I mean, yeah, look. Like, here it's not as bad. You go from here to here, here to here, and then all these little ones, you can end up to Australia pretty easily, but man, like going out to freaking New Zealand, or, yeah, it's Fiji. I wanted to make sure. Fiji, and then you got like Samoa Island, American Samoa Islands there, and then like, bam, Hawaii. I don't think there's really anything between Hawaii. Like, look at that. Like, amazing. Absolutely amazing to have done that. Anyways, let's go back to paint. Okay, during the Middle Sican period, metallurgists produced a dazzling array of gold objects, many of which were buried in tombs of the elite class. In the early 1990s, a team of archaeologists and conservators led by Izumi Shimada excavated a tomb where an elite man-seated skeleton was painted red and placed upside down at the center of the chamber. The skeletons of 2 young women were arranged nearby in birthing and midwifing poses. What? What? What is that? I'd like to see an image. Why was he upside down? Seated. Like, that's weird. And 2 crouching children's skeletons were placed at a higher level. Among the many gold artifacts found in the tomb was a red-painted gold mask, which covered the face of a man's detached skull. At the time, scientists identified the red pigment in the paint as cinnabar, but Luciana da Costa Carvalho, James McCullough, and colleagues wondered what the Sikon people had used in the paint mix as a binding material, which had kept the paint layer attached to the metal surface of the mask for 1,000 years. To find out, the researchers analyzed a small sample of the mask's red paint. Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy. I can't read well. Like, in my head, it's fine. Trying to read it out loud, it's difficult. I don't know if you guys remember, like, in elementary, when everybody's still, like, refining their ability to read, and you have to read out loud. You're all reading the same book, and it comes to your turn, and you stumble over every little word that you were doing fine in your head. Yeah, that's me. They identified 6 proteins from human blood in red paint, including serum albumin and immunoglobulin G, a type of human serum antibody. Other proteins, such as ovalbumin, came from egg whites. Because the proteins were highly degraded, the researchers couldn't identify the exact species of bird's egg used to make the paint, but a likely candidate is the Muscovy duck. The identification of human blood proteins supports the hypothesis that the arrangement of the skeletons was related to a desired rebirth of the deceased Sikon leader, with the blood-containing paint that coated the man's skeleton and face mask potentially symbolizing his life force, the researchers say. That's crazy. I would like to know the birthing and midwife positions that they had and how they got them to stay like that. Like, do you just have, like, a mummy or something, like, there to catch, and then you have another one that's, like, sitting there on their back with their legs raised up, and they're, like, just kind of stuff like this? I'd like to know. I don't know. I've never heard of it. It's interesting. Okay, let's see. Sorry, I didn't mean to make you guys listen to me drink. Okay. Let's see. Nearly 500 ancient ceremonial sites found in southern Mexico. That's a lot. But, like, Mesoamerica is just littered with stuff. Oh, so amazing. A team of international researchers led by the University of Arizona reported last year that they had uncovered the largest and oldest Maya monument, Aguada Phoenix. That same team has now uncovered nearly 500 smaller ceremonial complexes that are similar in shape and features. The find transforms previous understanding of Mesoamerican civilization's origins and the relationship between the Olmec and the Maya people. How did they find them? Probably through, like, scanning stuff instead of, like, on foot. The team's findings are detailed in a new paper published in the Journal of Natural Human Behavior. Arizona anthropology professor. Arizona. That's, like, who is writing it this way? You don't say Arizona. It's U of A. And ASU. Weird. Anthropology professor Takeshi Inomata is the paper's first author. His Arizona co-authors include anthropology professor Daniela Triadan and Accelerator Mass Spectrometry Lab director Greg Hodgins. Using data gathered through an airborne laser mapping technique called LiDAR, the researchers identified 478 complexes. I told you. They were scanning shit and they found it. They weren't, like, on foot. Complexes in the Mexican states of Tabasco and Veracruz. Nothing wrong with that. They found it. Now that we know that it's there, we can go look. Very efficient instead of just wandering around. LiDAR penetrates the tree canopy and reflects three-dimensional forms of archaeological features hidden under vegetation. The LiDAR data was collected by the Mexican government organization Instituto Nacional de Estadística y Geographia and covered a 32,800 square mile area. So that's big. Same size of Ireland. Dang. So, I think they're ritual places, and there's probably not much detail because they just found them. But cool. Now we're gonna give it a couple years, we'll start seeing data from those sites coming in. How bread wheat got its gluten, tracing the impacts of a long-lasting relative on modern bread wheat. So I wanted to do this one because it's food. And I know that a lot of people have started to look at how diet has changed since the advent of agriculture and everything. And gluten is a big one that in the last few years a lot of people have been talking about and such. So I figured it'd be a good one. Let's see how food has changed. Genetic detective work has uncovered an obscure ancestor of modern bread wheat in a finding similar to uncovering a famous long-lost relative through DNA analysis in humans. In a study which appears in Nature Biotechnology, researchers sequenced the DNA from 242 unique accessions of Aegilops touchii, gathered over decades from across its native range, from Turkey to Central Asia. Population genome analysis led by Dr. Kumar Gaurav from the John Innes Center revealed the existence of a distinct lineage of Aegilops touchii, restricted to present-day Georgia in the Caucasus region, some 500 kilometers from the Fertile Crescent, where wheat was first cultivated, an area stretching across modern-day Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, Israel, Jordan, and Egypt. First author of the study in Nature Biotechnology, Dr. Kumar Gaurav, said the discovery of this previously unknown contribution to the bread wheat genome is akin to discovering the integration of Neanderthal DNA into the out-of-Africa human genome. It is most likely to have occurred through a hybridization outside the Fertile Crescent. This group of Georgian accessions form a distinct lineage that contributed to the wheat genome by leaving a footprint in the DNA. The discovery comes via major international collaboration to improve crops by exploring useful genetic diversity in a touchchi, a wild relative of bread wheat. The Open Wild Wheat Consortium brought together 38 research groups and researchers from 17 countries. Further research by Dr. Jesse Poland's group of Kansas State University was published in a companion paper in Communications Biology and shows that the ancestral DNA found in modern bread wheat includes the gene that gives superior strength and elasticity to dough, which is what gluten does. So if you're making bread, I've kind of gotten into making bread recently. If you're making it and you are making with regular wheat, you can stretch it out and it kind of becomes like a clear, you can kind of see the light through it. But if you have a gluten-free source for your flour, you're not going to be able to do that. So the gluten actually really helps the dough become elastic. We were amazed to discover that this lineage was provided as the best known gene for superior dough quality. The researchers speculate that the newly discovered lineage may have been more geographically widespread in the past, and that it may have become separated as a refugium population during the last ice age. Reflecting on all that has come together to make this work possible, the corresponding author of the study remarked, 50 or 60 years ago, at a time when we barely understood DNA, my scientific forebears were traversing the Zagros Mountains in the Middle East and Syria and Iraq. They were collecting seeds, perhaps having an inkling that one day these could be used for improving wheat. Now we are so close to unlocking that potential, and for me, that is extraordinarily exciting. Deciphering this complex genome. I don't want to go into that. Okay, so they're thinking they might be able to use this wheat to kind of develop a better wheat for today that would help make bread a little bit better. Interesting. Yum. Okay. Small-scale foragers left more than footprints on the landscape. Archaeological sites like the Great Wall of China and the pyramids can be seen with the naked eye from space, but for ancient societies that did not build their traces on the landscape are more difficult to find. Now, Penn State researchers have used satellite data to identify areas in coastal southwest Madagascar where indigenous foragers altered their surroundings. One of the things I'm interested in is exploring the different ways that people leave a footprint on the landscape and understanding how long the traces of that footprint last. For a small-scale society that doesn't build structures, how do they impact the landscape, and will that impact last thousands of years? Using high-resolution PlanetScope satellite imaging and vegetative indices to show how the landscape co-evolved with humans, and then a random forest algorithm, and statistics to quantify the amount that humans changed their surroundings, the researchers were able to identify areas of human alteration. Archaeologists often looked at agricultural and pastoral societies in the past and cataloged the changes these lifestyles make in the landscape. Permanent or semi-permanent housing, fields, and other structures dot the area, and in some places completely change the natural landscape. But the impact on the landscape of hunter-gatherers is usually confined to temporary living locations, and the remains are a few broken pieces of pottery, fire pits, or animal bones. The assumption was that these communities did not alter the overall landscape. In coastal southwestern Madagascar, most archaeological sites for fishing and gathering communities are ephemeral. There are no large buildings, but the record of use for some rock shelters goes back thousands of years, even though these sites were only occupied part of the year. What we found was that the areas surrounding these sites that appear to be pristine are not, said Davis. We see a slight shift in the soil capacity to absorb water. This indicated by a shift in spectral reflectiveness seen in satellite images. The study area encompassed 250 to 300 square miles and showed that 70% of the area was changed by humans. The landscape changes may be subtle, but they are widespread. The researchers compared the areas around known archaeological sites to areas without known sites and found a statistical difference between the forests. They found indications that the distribution of plants differed between known sites and uninhabited areas. What we do not know is whether these types of changes in soil chemistry allowed people to occupy the areas in time of drought, or whether it allowed the ground to retain moisture and grow different plants. Douglas notes that animals in this area were drought adapted, so a slight increase in moisture could make a difference in the animals that occupied the areas around inhabited sites. According to researchers, there are long-lasting landscape effects of settlement, and their work reinforces previous research that found that ancient communities actively modified their ecological surroundings in ways that increased the suitability of previously settled areas. We underestimate the impacts of non-agricultural societies have on shaping landscapes. These are subtle, but can be discovered. Looking at landscapes across the world, we find that people modified more of the world than we thought before. That is cool! Like, that could help. So, the previous one, they were looking at LiDAR and being able to see, like, ceremonial sites and buildings and everything. Very obvious structures. But if you're not leaving long-term structures that are made out of stone, say you had a wooden hut or something, it's going to degrade really quick. But looking at the types of plants, the how it grew, and the soil composition through this computer program, they're able to find like hunter-gatherer sites. That's cool, and it should be applied elsewhere. Probably so many sites we haven't found, and it would be cool. So cool to be able to find those. Awesome. That is amazing news, honestly. I wonder how, like, so they did it on Madagascar. I wonder how they would adapt it to other locations, different environments, like maybe even in the Amazon rainforest and stuff. Probably still a technique in its infancy, but a lot of promise there, I think. What drove Homo erectus out of Africa? On a searing hot summer day, this is very story-like. At Ubeidiya, an ancient site in northern Israel, an undulating expanse of dry grasses and thistles stretch into the distance. Far on the horizon, the mountains of Jordan shimmer. Through the haze, nearby stand cultivated olive groves and a date palm plantation. Just south of the Sea of Galilee and up a rocky dirt road, Ubeidiya seems like a secret, with no sign to indicate its archaeological riches. But 1.5 million years ago, Ubeidiya's panorama would have looked dramatically different, says archaeologist Omri Barzilay. I think I did an article on this and not such a storytelling one. Sorry, I kind of got away with that. As he tramps through hillside brambles, you would have seen a large lake that extends. Yeah, I covered this. Hippopotamus. Yep, that's changed. Yeah, I already covered this. Sorry about that, guys. Same story, same site, different article. Sorry about that. So that's actually all I have. Kind of a quick stream today, only just under an hour, 15 minutes from an hour. So that kind of short, but that's okay. Clearly not thinking straight after a day in the field. Anyways, I am glad you guys stopped by to take a watch, and I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any questions or anything. I live stream every Tuesday at 4 p.m. in order to have it kind of an open discussion and where people can ask questions and everything, instead of it just being a loaded video that you could just comment, but I could actually answer questions directly in front of you if you catch me live. Anyways, I will see you guys next week. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week and a fantastic weekend, and stay warm because it's starting to get cold out.